Hi everyone, and welcome to the Spencer Lodge podcast in partnership with Najahi Events here in Dubai, the team that put together the amazing events, including the likes of Tony Robbins, Nick Vujicic, Prince EA, and many, many more. On today's episode, I've got a really very special guest. So I'm not telling you anything because it's going to be a great conversation. Cue the music. Let's get on with it. Well, who have we got today? Really excited to be able to share with you somebody who I've been following for an enormous amount of time. I think she's kind of like really big and really cool, and I think she talks in really wonderful ways and teaches us so much. But clinical psychology, Dr Shefali, thank you so much for joining us.
It's such a pleasure.
You have done loads and loads of interviews. You're all over YouTube, social media, but tell me from the very beginning, how on earth you got into this line of work?
Well, I think it was always a passion to understand the human mind, and I began meditating at a young age. I was studying psychology. I wanted to write. I began writing. My book got published, and I really think it was after Oprah picked it up, in all honesty, that I got some platform and greater publicity, and then people asked me for interviews, and then you just... and speaking is my thing. Like, I love to teach. I think I'm a teacher really at heart, a writer and a teacher. Those would be my two descriptions of myself. So that's just what I do naturally, So whether I do it one-on-one or I do it on a wide scale, it doesn't matter to me. It's just that's what comes naturally to me.
And so how old were you when you started to be interested in psychology?
Oh, I studied psychology in India, and then when I came, so I did my bachelor's in psychology at 21 years old. I came here, did a master's, then I did a PhD in clinical psychology. So that it was always what I just knew I wanted to do. And when I came here as in America at 21, I really started meditating and understanding the mind on that level, on an observer, metaphysical, cellular level. And that really is actually the bedrock of my entire worldview and the way I try to teach and live my life. The psychological is important, but I really think the pathway to liberation of the mind must come through a meditation practice.
See, meditation and me. It's interesting you talk about it, and I think for a lot of us, we think of meditation in yoga pants and sitting there in unusual poses. Yeah. But for me, I think when I run, can I meditate when I run?
I absolutely meditate when I run. You can be meditative technically all day long, when you eat, when you run, when you shower. I mean, it's all the time. It's bringing presence to your here and now, bringing your presence. So entering the present moment, realizing I'm here now, I'm with this person now, and what's coming up for me now, and bringing all your awareness into the present moment. That's what meditation is.
Okay, so when I'm running, I can't listen to music. I can't listen to a podcast. I can't. Yeah. Because it gives me a chance to gather my thoughts and start to compartmentalize everything and structure everything. Yeah. And then I finish a run and I feel... It's almost like my brain feels like it's organized. It's at a place now where I then can go on with the day and I'm far more structured. Yeah. Before I run, I find myself in a bit of a complicated place because I don't know what to prioritize and stuff. So maybe that's
you're allowing whatever comes up in your mind to come up. You're paying attention to it because you're really running. Mm-hmm. You're not just going with your thoughts. You're paying attention. If I had to summarize, you're watching your thoughts, and then they prioritize themselves because you're the watcher. You're the witnesser. You're on your breath. You're physically in your body in that moment, and you're organizing. Versus ruminating and going on the train and running with the train of your thoughts. You're actually a step away, and that space between yourself and your thoughts, that's the meditative space.
Okay. You've written loads of books, haven't you?
Well, 3.
3 books. I don't think I've written one, and it was a labor of love. It took 18 months. Yeah. Did you remember writing your first book?
Do I remember writing it? Yes.
How long ago was your first book?
Maybe now 10 years ago.
And when you first had to sit and think about writing a book.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is, isn't it?
It's overwhelming. Yes.
Where do you start?
Where do you start? The first page is the hardest, you know? Even though that first page never ends up as the first page anyway.
Yeah.
But it sets the tone, you know? It's like, how do I enter? It's how I give a talk. It's the first, how am I entering this? And I don't agonize over these things anymore, but I used to agonize over them a lot.
Oh man,
it's difficult. It's difficult. It is. People glamorize the writing process. They don't realize how much ardor and persistence and loneliness it can involve, you know?
Yeah.
It's alone. I wouldn't say lonely, but you are alone. No one can help you. You have to do it yourself, you know?
Yeah.
It has to come from within you. No one is writing it for you. So the editor can do a great job, but it really is a labor of love. It's just pulling stuff from inside you
and then convincing a publisher that what you're writing about is something that people should want to consume.
Very difficult. Yes.
Do you find yourself reading or with a paperback? Do you find yourself looking at a Kindle, or do you like to listen to an audiobook?
I can only read. I'm not an auditory reader. I'm not a screen. I'm old-fashioned. You know, just a book. Okay. I have to have a book.
And do you get that cramp in the inside of your thumb sometimes where you're holding the book?
Yeah.
I always find that.
And then I need to underline, I need to write. It's a distracting, like, what should I read? Should I process? Should I go off and write on my own? So when I'm in a writing mode, if I'm writing my book, I typically don't read anyone else's work for maybe a year before, during. I won't read anyone else's. I don't want to get influenced. I don't want to get biased. I want it to be as authentic a process as possible.
And do your books come from an idea that then gathers pace with time, or does it come out of maybe frustration that people don't necessarily get that side of things as much? I mean,
both.
If anyone doesn't know who you are right now, then they're living under a rock somewhere, aren't they?
I don't know. I don't feel people know me at all.
Really?
Yeah, I was shocked that you knew me, or Her Highness knew me. Yeah, I'm very surprised by these things. I live under a rock, I think. I live under Alicia? A rock, legit.
We know.
Yeah, I get surprised. Yeah.
They were like,
I live under a rock completely. I'd have no idea. But I'm not invested in that. I'm always shocked and surprised. But I think writing is really about expression. So you have to first reach a state of having an idea to share. Mm-hmm. So till that gets crystallized in me, I don't dare to say I have a book. So I wait, I wait for the idea to crystallize. Mm-hmm. And then when it does, I can just go with it, I've been lucky not to have to look for publishers. I get an open entry to publishers. So that anxiety is not there. How do I convince someone? I've never had to convince anyone, it's easy. But I have to be convinced. So that takes time, and I wait for it to be a very organic, clear vision. That takes years. But the writing for me takes, a few months. But till the vision is crystallized, that's what takes time. Yeah.
I think you need courage to write your first book as well. Because
huge.
It's quite daunting.
How dare you, right? Like, what audacity? Who are you? Those are the voices of the inner critic, Who are you to write a book? It's been written. And really, every book has already been written in some version or the other. Yeah. So who are you to think that your idea is so amazing? And so those voices I've learned are my ego, to keep me down, to keep me dim. So I've learned now to ignore those voices, because I'm not invested in anyone reading my books anymore. Because I know that they will, but also because I have to write, right? And when I teach people to follow their passion, I teach them, don't look for the audience. You don't think of your audience, even though the popular mythologies think of your audience. Mm-hmm. But I don't go that way. It's about your creative expression. If you keep wondering who your audience will be, you'll go crazy. You'll shift your tone for that imaginary person. You'll shift your tone for that person. You'll sell yourself. Don't do that. Writing is very personal. It's about you doing this for yourself. You're writing for you and for your 5 best friends. That's it. And for your kids, maybe. That's it. And you're lucky if they read it. So ultimately, it has to appetize you. It has to be a love affair that you and the book have between yourselves. And then you are detached from the outcome. Did you
relish it? It's really interesting you say
Yeah.
this, because we did an experiment with you yesterday that you don't know about.
No, I don't.
And one of my really good friends works with artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And he asked me if he'd like to take the content that my guests write and then the content of any interview I do with them and see if the artificial intelligence, the machine learning is telling anything different.
Wow.
Okay, so it did some assessment on you. Would you like to know what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a company called Searchy, which is actually an AI-based recruitment consultancy.
Okay.
First company of their kind in the world. And they're working all over the world to help companies identify the right candidates for business, because human beings have bias.
Yes.
And so if I interview you for a job, maybe, I meet you and I think you look great, so I'm going to start looking for other things subconsciously that I like about you.
Yeah, the halo effect.
And vice versa. Yeah. So you come for an interview and maybe I don't you say something that doesn't really work with my sense of humor at the beginning, and I think,
or one thing I say off, and that's it. All my credentials can go off.
And all of us. So and that bias exists, and so it's very hard to recruit the right people in business.
Yes.
And so there's lots of studies on this kind of stuff. But whilst there's bias, there will never be the perfect fit for a role.
Sure.
And the CEO, who's probably, when we think about the different personality types, the CEO of most companies typically a driver.
Right.
And so he's impatient, and so he wants to get through the process as quickly as possible in most cases. So how is he choosing the right person?
Yeah.
And so what we have is a piece of software. They have a piece of software. And so I'll share this with you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's really interesting, and you can see what you think of it, because literally, he contacted me yesterday. Was it yesterday or this morning? Harvey.
So then, what did you?
So he's gonna take this interview. And he's gonna put it through the system.
Nice.
Okay, as well, to assess it. I'll send you the information after it's done. Yeah. Okay. So let me just make sure that you understand. Okay. This is one of my buddies. Okay, so it occurred to me this morning to run your guests through our machine. Thought that if there's anything particularly strong or weak, we could help you to frame questions that could get good reactions from them. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, yeah. We did it with Donna Benton, who was one of my guests. The machine told us she struggled with innovation. So we did a bit around her lack of confidence, making The Entertainer a digital app. So it went from being a book to a digital app. Thought it might be of interest to see what we get with your guests, especially Gary Vee, Grant, etc. Thinking about it, I'm going to do it anyway and send you the results. There's bound to be something there useful and not completely obvious. I thought, great, thanks for reaching out, yeah? I'm like, well, that sounds interesting. He said, who else do you have? I said, we can do both, but makes sense to prioritize. Okay, Dr Shefali's tomorrow. This is how he's responded. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 1, values diplomacy and searches for win-win solutions. Number 2, motivated by competition. Number 3, enjoys to change people's minds. Feels very comfortable presenting in a formal environment. And you can just say yes or no, I don't know, it's up to you. Prefers to let other people talk and could feel uncomfortable with too much attention. This one might be nice to drill in on. How does she balance her natural desire to let other people have the spotlight with her role as a presenter, and how does she manage that conflict? I thought it was interesting. A natural problem solver and leans into analysis. Likes complicated theories. Excels at understanding how historical events influence and affect present situations. Probably why she does what she does so well, is what his comment is. Likes to create stability. I've not watched many of her videos, but I bet she defaults to suggesting people implement systems and rules to fix or address the problems they're encountering. This is interesting. Doesn't seem to enjoy networking, which ties in with her letting others take the spotlight. I wonder how she's balanced that with her career progression.
That is so correct.
Is it?
I hate to say yes because it could just be a Chinese horoscope, you know. But I'm just like, it could work for you, it could work for me.
This is literally from the A. It's exactly what he wrote.
Number 2, it could be true, but this is the most. Doesn't seem to enjoy networking, which ties in with her letting others take the spotlight. I wonder how she's balanced that with her career progression. Really values openness and authenticity. Places huge value on other people's ability and appetite to learn. I mean, 100%.
Really?
100%.
That's really, really...
I don't know whether I'm motivated by competition, but I can't say I'm... Because I don't have competition in my life right now. But if I did, I could be fueled by it. But I don't have competition. I mean, not to sound like, but I don't... No, I didn't mean it like that. I just mean like, I'm not... Who am I going to compete with? Like, I don't know, another author? Like...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know whether I'm motivated by that, but I'm
Isn't
definitely...
this interesting?
It's amazing. Good software program. I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, and it goes deep. It goes to deeper stuff that typically people don't talk about. You know, it's not just a zodiac reading. You know.
Yeah. This is genuine stuff. Mm-hmm. So what happens is, instead of companies receiving CVs, and then a piece of paper, everybody has to go through a video interview.
Yeah, how cool.
They're asked a bunch of questions on the video interview, and let's say that you're offering, if you put a job on LinkedIn here, you'll get 1,000 responses. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with 1,000? How do you go through that? You don't.
Right.
So what the system does is it will take a video interview from everybody, and then the system will decide who are the best people for the job.
For the match,
and
I like that. It should be a dating thing too.
Yeah, and then what will happen is it will then tell the company, these are the people you should do face-to-face interviews
I like
with.
it. Yeah.
Good, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all of it is me.
That's just so cool. Okay.
End of interview. Yeah.
And we're done. So, this kind of stuff really fascinates me. So when I think about, we were talking about you writing books and stuff, and when we look at what you do for a living, I think you really get people to question by what you talk, like just like today's talk, which I've heard some of it before, so forgive me.
Yeah.
But you get people to really think deeply about their own situation.
Well, I think what I am trying to do is get people to see what we've bought into and how deluded it is. Yeah. All the stuff we think is real is so silly.
You don't say how deluded it is. What you're saying when you say it is how deluded you are.
Yeah.
But that's what you say to me.
Right.
And so I sit there going, oh yeah.
So I make it's a process that makes people feel uncomfortable. So people resist me a lot. And I go deep, into the institutions we live with, all of them, all the labels, all the titles, all the things we've bought into with such a ferocity, and I debunk them, I deconstruct them. And that's my passion, is to look at how we got here, like that app said, like historically, culturally, how do things come to be? How do we believe in what we believe in? Where do our ideas come from? And let's look at how they're all constructed by man. They're not divinely ordained. Nothing is a divine ordination. It's all been created by us out of some need and mostly out of fear. So when you realize that, then you have a choice to not buy into it anymore. But we're all programmed by fear. And that's really what I talk about, how to enter a place of detachment from that fury and furor of fear.
Would you help me?
Sure.
If I asked you a couple of questions?
Of course.
Yeah? Okay. So...
You need a lot of help.
So we just what?
I will help you speak, my dear.
So I was married when I was 26 years old for 5 years. I got divorced, but I had 2 children.
Okay.
So my daughters are now 17 and 20. My 20-year-old is very much like me, and her behaviors like mine, her ambitions very similar to mine. My youngest is the complete opposite. She has very little ambition by comparison. She just wants everyone to be happy. My eldest will take you down if you get in her way, type of thing. All right. I've been divorced now for 15 years. My ex-wife has been married for 13 years to somebody else, and still she drives me mad.
Yeah. Why? Why does she still get to you?
Hating on me.
Oh, she
hates on me.
Is driven mad by you.
She hates. She doesn't like the fact that I'm successful.
Oh, okay.
And even though we divorced in 2000 or whatever it was, 2004, and she got nearly everything, because that's what happens in divorces in England. There's a woman with children, and so I had to start again. She has enormous resentment for the success I had since. And I don't believe that the kids should be brought up the way that she brings them up, and I believe that they should be brought up the way I bring them up. And we've got different ways of parenting. Okay?
Right.
And again, you're like, oh, here we go.
Another one. Same old story.
Same old story. Yeah. And I'm remarried, and I have a wife, Anna, and I've been married to her for 4 years. We've been together 7 years, and she comes from a very successul family. All right, her grandfather was the guy that took Pepsi Cola to the Soviet Union 50 years ago, and so they have an enormous family wealth. I don't come from that environment. I come from an environment where mum and dad went bankrupt when I was a kid, and mum and dad had to struggle. They got divorced. I've got a bunch of sisters, and we just had to dig in and fight. And so when I look at my situation and I think about other people that are listening and watching this podcast, it's not an unfamiliar story. We're not talking about something that's, jazz hands. But using children as weapons is what I've found over the years has been something that I've been a victim of. So my ex-wife has used the children, and to lots of success with my youngest, to limited success with my eldest. My eldest is now almost worked out what mum's up to. Yeah. And so she can see through it now. Yeah. And so she's now like, no, I'm not playing, I'm not getting caught in that game anymore. Yeah, yeah. Whereas my youngest is still wrapped up in there. So when you see these types of situations, and I live overseas, they live in the UK. So I go home every second weekend, or did until a few years ago, every second weekend to see them. And so you want your kids to do well in life. We all want that, yeah? Right. And so I paid for them to go to a very expensive school. Right. It was on your learnings 5 or 6 years ago that I started to say, why am I sending my children to such an expensive school? It's just for my ego. It's for my satisfaction. Guilt. But it's me to say to the world, yes, my children go to a very expensive school and it's very good, and then yes, and you should know that. Type of thing. Right. People would say, what school do your kids go to? It's like, oh, let me tell you what school. Do you know what I mean? Right. And so when I look at that, you may be completely aware of that. Yeah. And maybe I was too far down the road to pull them out of it. Sure. They've been in the same school for many years. Right. And my only one thing when they were young was, because I went to many schools, was I would like them to go to the same school all the way through. Yeah. Because I'd like them to have the stability. Sure. Because I didn't have that as a kid. Yeah. I was bullied quite a lot because I kept starting at new schools as we moved. And so I didn't really have a friendship group. I was the loner a lot of the time. And I never wanted my kids to have that. Yeah. And so that was the only one thing that was important. The rest was completely ego driven. Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of talk about university not being what it used to be and the values that it used to have. Right. My eldest has started university, and I just found myself falling into the trap again. Yeah. What university did your daughter go to? Yes, she goes to the University of Arts in Chelsea campus in London. It's like, what have I done again? You know, it's me feeding something that satisfies me.
100%.
Now, fortunately, she's very happy there. She's glad she's there. She's loving it. But But
it's the pressure, right? Like even when parents talk to you, the first thing they say, what does your child do? Like they want to see the CV of the 7-year-old. And you feel like, oh my God, like what does my child do? And you feel the need to say that, oh, she's a top tennis player, surfer, or mountain climber. Like these parents put pressure on you, but then we succumb to it and then we perpetuate it because we do feed into it. So how do you break out of it, you know?
That's the question. Okay.
Well, that's
Sorry,
what
I gave you this long-winded
thing.
That's
what I teach, you know.
Give us 2 minutes. Give us a 2-minute lesson on
Well, it's a declaration you make in your life that you're not going to work out of the ego to the extent that others do. The ego is always going to be part of our existence because we were raised with this false sense of bravado and persona, the school, the achievement, the money, you know, so some part of it is so deeply conditioned, but we make a declaration to ourselves that, okay, I know it's there, it's a beast, but I'm going to try my best to move away from it. But every person has to make that decision for themselves because it's anti-mainstream. Mainstream says, what school did your kid go to? What does your kid do? You know, how pretty she is. And, you know, who's she in a relationship with? Is she's not married? You know, all these milestones that we've begun to identify ourselves by. So we have to move away from mainstream and be anti-mainstream. And it's uncomfortable. But that's what it means to move away from the ego. And in terms of the parental alienation that you were talking about, that your ex-spouse put you through, well, you know, she is not yet resolved within herself, and she has her ego is insecure by you, and she feels threatened and intimidated, and it's very difficult. You know, she probably feels you betrayed her, and she's still holding on to that. People hold on to stuff for a long time. You know, that's their ego. They hold on to protect themselves because they're actually in so much pain that it's easier to not like the other person than to deal with the pain. She's actually in a lot of pain, and she should grieve the loss versus attack the one she believes created the loss. You know, but it takes a lot of courage to do all this inner work. And of course, you use your children as pawns. Every parent is doing that. It takes an evolved person to not do that, you know, to move away from the ego.
Brilliant. Okay, you've answered that perfectly. Talk to me about why people shouldn't be married forever.
Well, I don't think they should or shouldn't. First, they should look at marriage as an institution and not take it as an automatic given checkbox they should really examine this institution. Marriage was created for a very specific purpose, for property control, and property being women and children as well. And today we have to ask ourselves whether we can re-envision this idea of marriage. Does it need to be legal? Is it divinely ordained? People have bought into all this stuff that it doesn't exist. And then if it doesn't last forever, is it a failure? So people are very tied up into these archaic definitions of marriage, as they are of other things too: success, beauty, achievement, wealth, happiness. All these are institutions that we have one idea of, but there are a plethora of ways to look at it. So marriage typically is looked at as, that's it, till death do you part. And does it need to be a physical death, or can it be the death of that phase, or can death of that time? But people take it very literally, and anything that against that is a sham, a shame, and a failure. And because of that, divorce is painful. Because we have those archaic understandings of marriage, your wife thought you guys should be married forever. He should. And it should look a certain way. And therefore, when it ended, she couldn't let it go gracefully. I'm just projecting. But, she couldn't let it just go gracefully, beautifully. If marriage is a communion of two loving people, then divorce should be the completion of that communion. It shouldn't be anything more than the completion of a communion, right? But the end of the communion means very typically the end of the love that brought you into the marriage. So where did the love go? I often ask people, why is the love being lost? The communion can be completed, but why does the love have to go? Well, because he betrayed me, or he rejected me, or he cheated on me. I go, okay, but that's the completion of the communion, but why does the love have to go, right? But because we've equated love with the shoulds of marriage, which is longevity, loyalty, fidelity, and all these things equal love. But do these things equal love? And why does love need to be predicated on these conditions?
Right. You're from India originally. And I used to be, many years ago, 30 years ago, I used to be a financial advisor. And that would mean I would sit down with people from different parts of the world, and give them advice on their future. And lots of Indians and lots of Chinese used to say the following to me, okay, how important it was for their child to go to a great university. Sure, that one, this is news you've heard a million times, to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, all that stuff. And it was like, why? And what they taught me back then was they essentially are our retirement income. So we're going to provide them the best with our money, the best university. So that they can take care of me when I grow older. Take care of me when we grow old. Older people in India are shameless in saying that. They'll just say it. So you can take care of me. Do they still say it today? Well, my grandmother said it. I used to always say, why do you love me so much when I was young? Why are you so nice? She was like, don't worry, I'm only doing this so you take care of me when I grow older. It's just the way that they talk. But part of it is true. Yes. They invest because families live together. Sons take care of the parents, and they live in a joint family system, which is quite lovely, I think. It has its perks, but it also has its downsides. And so everyone lives together. So if the parents do invest in the son's education, the son typically, then there's a payback, So do you think, though, that in today's day and age, well, let me ask you, okay? You're Indian. Would you like and you've got kids? Yes. How many kids? I have one daughter. One daughter. Yeah. Okay. Do you want your daughter to provide for you when you're old? No, I never think of that. But today's time is different, I think. Right. Because we now live in more nuclear, isolated systems, which again has its downsides and its perks. But I think there's a greater self-reliance now on ourselves as providing for ourselves. But in that system, the Indian system of even today, there's an interdependence, which I think is lovely, and we do this for you, you do that for us. But it can become claustrophobic because it can become transactional. But a nuclear system, isolated family system, autonomous, lovely, you go on your way, we'll take care of ourselves. Lovely in that respect, but claustrophobic in another respect. It can get isolating. It can get, lack of interdependence can also lead to loneliness and a sense of, not being part of a community. But do we not preach happiness? Do we not preach happiness? Do we not say, look, the most important thing in life is to be happy and feel happy? Right. And if I'm a 19-year-old kid and mum and dad are going to pay for my university, right, and I'm going to study something that I'm really passionate about, so my daughter's studying art. Right. who knows where that's going to take you? Yeah, right. Is that going to take it down?
So you're coming from the mentality that each person follows their sovereign desires and sovereign spirit. I believe that too, but the Indian system is more about the we collective than the I. So sons owe the parents, and it's quite rigid in its hierarchy. And now things are changing. Times are changing, and now we are letting our children go and become less conditional. But in more traditional cultures, there's a very clear transaction between parents and children. I do this for you, and now you owe me this.
Interesting. Okay, entrepreneurship. You're here at the Sharjah Entrepreneur Festival, so you're at an entrepreneur festival. Yeah. I coach entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I find it a really groovy word nowadays. That when I was young used to be called one-man band or soul trader and stuff like that. And now it became sexy to be an entrepreneur. And do you know what? I find that really disappointing, because I think being an entrepreneur is a really tough environment to be in.
Very tough.
You move away from the security of having a steady salary.
Not everyone can become one. Everyone wants to become one.
Yeah.
But it's hell on wheels, because it's risky, it's daring, you're living in the unknown, you don't have anyone to fall back on to give you a paycheck. You have to generate, and that's very difficult.
And it's not only you, maybe it's your wife and your kids you've got to be responsible for.
Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, and you never know when the next paycheck is coming from.
Yeah, anxiety.
Yes.
Okay, depression.
Oh, completely.
Okay, abandonment issues, loneliness.
Yeah, well, it's scary. It's a scary place to be, because you're not working in an environment, where everyone's working in a company and you clock in and you clock out. There's some comfort there. Yes, there's a loss of soul perhaps, but there's comfort. But this, you're out on your own. It's a jungle, and you have to kind of make your way. It takes a particular kind of person to be an entrepreneur and be a successful one at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, most fail. In fairness, most people as entrepreneurs, before it was called entrepreneurs and when it was called small business owner, they failed as well. So the title didn't mean the success rate got better or worse. People failed, and people still to this day fail. And whether that's personality issues, whether they're trying to solve a problem that they can't fix, maybe there's more competition, a million things, bad management of cash flow, whatever it may be. Do you work with people? I mean, you're here at the Entrepreneur Festival. Do you understand that dynamic? Do you dig deep into there and try and understand the psychology that people are buying into themselves in that type of process?
Yeah, I think I do help people, if they want to be entrepreneurs, how to break down the obstacles that are stopping them from becoming an entrepreneur in the true sense. The risk taker, the rebel, the creative, right? And also the one who manages and organizes it all. So I do help people to break down the barriers, and I show them if they are a match or not. Not everyone can do this. So it's coming to terms and out of denial of whether you are even an entrepreneur. It's not for everybody.
But would they come to you after they're realizing it's tough, or do they come to you before they start? Because that's the best time, isn't it?
Many come to me with a vision and a fantasy.
Okay.
And it's all based on just a dream, a lark. So my first step, and even if they've tried it, and even if they're doing well but want to do better, my first job is to evaluate with them how good a match is it for you in your current life. It may have been great 10 years ago, but now you have 2 children. Now you're 10 years older. Is it still a good match for you? We can change. We can do entrepreneurship, go back to working in a company, come back. It's okay. You're not just an entrepreneur for the rest of your life. You can create a lifestyle that matches. Today it matches, tomorrow it may not match. So I help them understand if they're a match. And then if we are kind of a match, then why are we not overcoming these obstacles? And then we go down the obstacles, and most of them have to do with believing in yourself, honing in your talent, and then really being bold-faced and unashamed and unabashed to go out there. It's a lot of putting yourself out there that people are terrified of, because you will be rejected.
Are you an entrepreneur?
I find the word boring, frankly. I don't find a sizzle to it, but technically I am.
You have to make your own living. You've got no fixed salary.
I know. I don't like to define myself as that, but yes.
Do you find that can be lonely for you?
Yeah, because a lot of my work has to do with community, I'm never feeling lonely, and I'm contributing to people's lives, and I'm embedded in so many communities. But is it lonely making? Is it an alone process? Yes, because you're the decider, you're the head, there's no one holding your hand. But I love it because it has forced me to grow up. And I never thought 10 years ago I could be so grown up, I have to look at the losses. But I'm in charge of the profit. It's the perk and I love it because it's really allowed me to become abundant in my mindset and neutralize the fear around money. And because it's up and down, right? As an entrepreneur, there's nothing fixed. So I've really learned to befriend money, especially the lack of money, like befriend that state and be as loving to it as if you had it. That's been the biggest lesson that I have to teach people, because that's another fear people have.
That's killer.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah. Because when the money goes down, that's it. They want to check out. They don't want to do this anymore. And so passion is vagrant and conditional based on the money they have. And I have to teach them to separate the money from the passion. Money is important, but you can't tie in. Like I said, love and marriage shouldn't be tied together.
Yeah.
Passion and income shouldn't be tied together. And it's very difficult for people to extricate it. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Do you have a coach?
No, I don't have a coach.
So when it comes to managing finance and whatnot, you're the kind of person that will sit and study it yourself?
I'm really basic though. I'm like in, out kind of person. I don't build. My way of making money is to generate service. So I'm always thinking, and not because I'm some Mother Teresa, it's just creative for me, I get a high from serving people. And so it's selfish, I'm not doing it out of some it gives me a direct hit. Now what to do? That's where I get my high from. But I get lauded for it as if I'm selfless. But no, I'm getting genuine. It's like pleasure for me.
Yeah.
So I never claim to be some martyr, but I just like to be creative. That's what I love. So writing is creative for me. Teaching is creative for me. I'm always thinking of ways that I can help people and create courses. And so then money comes as a byproduct. And then I don't interfere with money too much. I'm not about like putting it in the stock market, watching it grow, I just let it do its thing. I can't be bothered beyond a point because it doesn't interest me, because money is flow. It comes in, it goes out. I'm not chasing it. I'm not keeping it. But there have been times that I've been alone and lonely and scared, as the only one who's making it. At that point in time, I've been scared.
Good. You mentioned the fact that you said, because I feel it myself as well.
Yeah.
You sit there and you're in business and you feel that money flows. And I think that when people get wrapped up around the meaning of money, I think that's a really important thing to make sure you're aware of. And the other thing is the selfishness around when you give.
Yeah.
I have a charity that I work with. They take children from the slums of Bangladesh and they bring them here and they educate them. Yeah. And the lady that does that has done remarkable in getting 600 kids out of the slums and educated internationally. It's wonderful, yeah? And I got them on stage at an event at the weekend where they could talk in front of 2,000 people and tell their story so that they could raise awareness. And I stood at the side of the stage crying. And they're so grateful to me for what I've done. And I said to them, this is all about, this is me. Yeah. This is all me. This feeling that you give me is all about me. Yeah. And they don't see that, but so I completely identify with that selfishness aspect.
Completely.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it?
It's a greedy, selfish part of me that wants to feel useful.
Yeah.
And that's why I do my work. So it comes across as so lovely and selfless. But I out my greed right away. I'm hungry, not for validation, but to feel like I've been useful.
To feel like recognition?
I don't know. Yeah, it could be. But if somebody tells me that what I said helped them, that's like the drug to me. Or what I said helped change their life, that's what I'm looking for.
So when you get an email like that or a message like that?
That makes me feel like, okay, I will do this again. So that's like my drug. I'm addicted to it. Now I want to do more. I want to help more people. I don't pay attention to their name. I don't even care what they're really saying to me. I just care what impact it's had. And I go, okay, this is important. I need to keep doing it.
That's really honest. That is. I'm not paying attention to their name.
Yeah, I don't.
But that's really honest of you to say that.
Yeah.
Because most people wouldn't say that. They'd say that when someone sends me an email and it says I've changed their life, it makes me go and I accelerate again.
Yeah.
But not being really honest. It's like the feeling that those words between the dear Spencer and the kind regards.
Yeah, but it's not about me and it's not about them. It's about what happened alchemically between the two of us that charges me. Something happened between my energy and their energy and something worked. That's what I run after. You know, and so when people don't like me, I invite them, you know, then I get a greater charge, you know, because I'm going to now make something out of this mess, you know. And so I always invite people to come engage in a dialogue with me. Tell me why you were so offended by me. Tell me, and we'll deconstruct it. You know, I take it as a challenge. I can't say I adore that process, but I do now in my life take it as a challenge. You know, the first hit of when somebody says, you know, oh, Dr. Shefali, that was baloney, that was rubbish, that was terrible, you know, you're the devil or whatever. At first, I don't like it, I have to say. But now I've learned to, again, see the jewel that is possible here and not pay attention to the words. But if that person is willing, let's see if we can transform. Maybe you'll transform me, or maybe I'll transform you. But let's go deeper than just calling me some names, you know? But very few people rise up to the invitation. But I do get 1 out of every 10 people who don't like me. 1 will come and we'll deconstruct it and we'll go to a deeper place.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'll see my ego. They'll see their ego. And very often I'll see my ego.
Good.
You know, how I said something, and they'll teach me how I can say it in a more compassionate way. And then they'll see their ego about how they got bruised and why they got bruised. You know, they thought I was their mother, or they projected some stuff onto me. So it'll be a really useful process.
Wow. Okay, I know you've got a flight to catch, so I won't take too much of your time. One more question before we finish. When you listen to people, who are the people that inspire you?
In my own life?
In your own life. Who are the people out there that either you consume or you read? Who inspires you?
Well, typically people who meditate, and meditation teachers and Eastern Buddhist philosophy teachers, you know. I'm fascinated by the Buddhist approach to life because the Buddha understood that life is to be lived in the present. He understood life is impermanent. He understood that everything is interdependent. I mean, he was just a genius.
It was the only religion, Buddhism.
Not a religion.
Okay, well, when I lived in the Far East, I lived in Thailand.
For tax purposes, maybe, but not. The Buddha didn't espouse a God. There was no God. There was only the Buddha within, the awakening within, the God within. You know, there's a saying in Buddhism: if you see the Buddha on the outside or the God, you know, kill it, because it's an illusion. The Buddha really taught inner awakening, the liberation of the mind from its own attachments. He really just taught meditation and how to liberate the mind from its shackles. And the reason why we suffer is because we attach to things. And we think that those identities, those things, those possessions are us. You know, it's very much what I teach now. It's just, I told you, when I began meditating at 21, that formed the bedrock of my entire perspective.
Every time I run, I'm going to think about this conversation that we've had now, just to take me back there.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you having come on
the show. Of course.
So there we have it, the adorable, gorgeous, wonderful, interesting and inspiring Dr. Shefali on the show. How cool was that to have someone as just as epic, and someone I followed for so long. Okay, this is what I want you to do. If you want to see other episodes, you know where you can go over there and you can get more episodes. But what you can do, which will make me really happy, is you can subscribe by clicking over there. And if you do, you're going to get every episode coming to you on your phone, your laptop, your iPad, wherever it may come, over and over and over again. And who doesn't want more of this kind of stuff with awesome people like this? So click there right now. I'll see you soon.